Hi, this is an instructive video on how to clean our water coolers, our hot and cold water coolers. So this is what we refer to as a hot and cold cleaning. We do have a process of just a cold water cleaning, but today this is going to be a complete cleaning, both the hot water tank and the cold water tank. So when you arrive to do your cleaning, this is basically how you're going to have it set up. This is going to be coming from the water line. So we'll just turn off the valve. So the valve will most likely will always be our white and blue ones. This is a gray one. So it's just the shut-off valve that comes to your water cooler. So it's pretty simple. You just take your lid off and that's your top setup. So I'm gonna unplug the water cooler right now, so it's not running while we're doing the initial cleaning. So this one here has a locking ring on top. The newer ones do not have a locking ring, but the older ones do. So it's just 1/8 of a turn, and just remove it there. And then this exposes your lid for the top of the water cooler. You do not need to remove the water line. If you happen to need to remove the water line for whatever reason, it's simple. You just remove this pin that's here, that's holding, put it in there so we don't lose it. And this is the quick release line, so you just push in, hold this with your thumbnail or fingernail, and then pull out to do a release. And that type of thing. So, but for today we don't. And when you're putting them back in, one of the quickest, easiest way to do is take your marker and put like a 3/4 of an inch from the end, put a little black mark, or hold your finger 3/4 of an inch. And so when you slide it in, you know it's all the way in when your finger touches, or you're at that 3/4 inch line. And we'll put that. And most important, that if you remove that, you put that key back in, so that prevents that from ever coming loose. All right, so this is simple. So all we're going to do is we're just going to pry up, and a lot of times it snaps off. So there's your 2 floats underneath. So we'll set that aside just in here. Things we want to look for when we get here, and we simulated it, is there a lot of ice buildup in the cooler. And that may be a sign that if there is a lot of ice in here, you can have a little bit of ice, but if there's a lot of ice, you can see it down in there. The cooler is probably turned down too low, so we'll adjust the thermostat on that. So to adjust that ice, we don't want to use any hard materials in there. So what we will look at doing, if you do have ice, that's a really good example, we'll drain the water and we'll put some hot water in. So let's do that. So how do you drain the water cooler? So around the back side, you're going to have a drain. So you're going to take your bucket. This one has the new modern sort of locking tab. So it just slides in. It goes a 1/4 turn. And then just going to adjust this in. There we go. Just a little blockage there. So now you're going to see the water is going to drain out. So this is both a hot and cold water cooler. So this is the cold water. So that's going to drain down to the top of this pipe here. And this pipe is what takes the water to the hot water tank. So once it's coming down, once it gets down a little bit, you can take this and turn this. Just unscrew it counterclockwise. and that will come out. So you see how it's screwed in there. Yep. So we're going to set that aside. We're going to clean that later. So we're going to see if the ice will dislodge. Oh, there it is. It did dislodge with my fingers. If it doesn't, what we will do, once it's already cleaned out, we'll take a pail and get some really hot water and just put some hot water in the cooler for a few minutes. And then that will allow it to sort of dislodge. That type of thing. So we're going to take those out into the sink. And we've unplugged the cooler, so the heating element is not running in the hot water tank because we're cleaning this out. Okay, so once we're down to the bottom there, so it's only, we're going to come around, we're going to take out the rest of our water, just using the cold water faucet. And just dump it down the drain. As you see in the bottom here, there's a couple plugs. And that will slowly drain what's in there. This allows, if there's any fine sediment in the water, this will allow to sit in the bottom of the tank and won't come into the drains and that type of thing. So a couple of pieces there. So now that is done. So what we're going to do now, since that's all drained out, we are going to, I'll double check, make sure the hot water tank is empty. That should be it. Yep. So we're going to put this plug back in. And then, so you can see there's just the hot water just finishing to drain out from the hot water tank. There's a little sediment plug right here that's causing it to drain slower. We'll remove that after and we'll take that apart. There we go. That's the last of the water. So we're just going to put this back in because we're going to use this bucket for our preparation of our cleaning product. So the most important thing now, I already cleaned this bucket before we did the draining, but the most important part is that this bucket is perfectly clean because we're now going to put in our vinegar and water solution. So what we use is we use 2 parts vinegar and 8 parts water. So what does that mean? So when we're doing a full hot and cold, we will do 2 cups of vinegar and we will do 8 cups of water. So that is our solution. There's 1, 2, 8. All right, so that is our water vinegar solution. So now what we can do is, all we do here is we just put this in. So what we got there now is our vinegar water solution, and what we're going to do is we're just going to open up the hot water faucet to make sure that there is vinegar solution in the hot water tank. And there is. Okay. If there is, if there's no water coming when you press the hot water tab, it means there's just an airlock. So you just got to keep that open until the water starts flowing. Okay, so now that we've got all the product in there. There's a couple other things we can do. We can take our cleaning. So these are our drip trays, and you can see sometimes the calcium build up. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of vinegar and water solution and just put those in our bucket and let them soak. And the reason we're doing that is so then we can clean them easily and that type of thing. So we're going to take a brand new clean cloth. I'm going to put this in here so that soaks in the solution. So what we're going to do is just take a brand new clean cloth, and we're just going to go around and inside of the cold water tank, and we're just going to do a nice cleaning of the walls, and we are going to do a cleaning of the bottom, and we're going to do a cleaning of this, and we're going to, so that's just a build up. So we'll let that soak for a bit, and it will make it easier, but I'm just doing this, trying to get all this stuff in here, and we'll do another wipe just before we clean it. And we will now turn on the water cooler and just let the heating element run for 10 minutes. So we'll let the solution sit in the system for another 10 minutes. We'll turn on the hot water tank, and so we will come back to you after 10 minutes. Okay, so we're back. So we left this 10 minutes. If it goes 15, that's fine, because if you're doing some other cleaning, don't worry about it, because the more time the solution stays in it, the better it is. So a couple things that I did here is while we're waiting, I put some vinegar and water solution in the bucket, and I put the tray. Remember how it was just all calciumized? And I put that in, and I put the tray cover in this. And then what I did is I just use a brush like this, and just get down the water and just clean that internal part out, and all that, because clean all the stuff off. And then I just used a cloth just to clean, and then we'll rinse this with some clean water to get any vinegar smell away. But see how that completely cleaned the drip tray out. It's now all nice and clean. So on the tray here, what I did is I just went through just to speed. I did these, each one of these took any calcium buildup in there, and that's it. And then in the machine here, so I went through and around these two plugs that are down in the bottom, I just did a really thorough cleaning around the edges of it, and to make sure that I got it nice and clean. And as you can see, the water is now a little bit dirty, and that's because we've removed all the any of the buildup and sediment. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to use the cloth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drain the water out of the cold water tank into this bucket, because there's no reason to put the dirty water down in the hot water tank if you don't have to. Now, that is that. I'm going to take this cloth, and then I'm going to go back and just clean this cloth out. So just giving this a nice wipe and clean before I go to the next step. And also what I did is I used this, and I went down into here and just cleaned that, and I did the same thing in here just to make sure that if there's anything there in those cracks, I've cleaned those all out too. So that brush is very helpful. So I'm just going through here, and then I'll do a visual inspection. Is there any spots that I need to touch up? The hardest spot is around these blue and black plugs, because they got little grooves and corners and cracks. So that's we just want to make sure we get in there and get anything in there, get it dislodged, and that way we don't have to deal with that later. Okay. Okay, so that all looks very good. So we're going to go back here and we're going to do another final drain. So just turn this back to quarter turn. Take this out. If it's a little slow and there's a little bit of sludge there, you can take one of your brushes and just slide it back up in there. Yep. If you're getting anything that's just building up there, that rarely happens, but if it does, that's easy to fix. So all we're doing now is we're just draining the water out of the hot water tank so that it's unplugged again. So this is the vinegar solution. And then once we drain it out, what we're going to do is we're going to fill it up with fresh water. And then we'll let it sit for a few minutes again. So we're going to make sure our pail is nice and clean again. It can be hot or warm water. So basically what we need to do is flush the hot water tank twice in total. So it's much easier just to put buckets of water in than trying to hook it back up to the line. So you can see now it's dropping, the water is dropping down, so it's going down into the hot water tank. And then I'm gonna run the water here and there. Okay. Actually, I might add some more water. So and then we'll bring it all the way up to the top of the cold water tank. So with that, then we'll turn the hot water tank back on again so it heats up. Okay. So what we're going to do is now, because so here's the thing. So we used a brand new rag for cleaning. So we're going to grab another, bring them with us when we're doing this spot. We're going to use a clean cloth that doesn't have any vinegar. Because what you want to now is we want to get rid of that vinegar smell and taste, because that's the number one thing is why we're flushing it out, is that you don't want your customers having a drink of water and smelling or tasting vinegar. So that's why I'm using a brand new cloth that's never been used, and I'm just going to wash the inside again and clean all those components. And then we're just going to leave this for another 10 minutes or so and let it do its thing, and then we'll come back and we'll drain it again. Okay, so we're back. We let this sit for another 10 minutes or so. So I'm going to unplug our water cooler. while we're draining the hot water tank. So why I was waiting for that, so I took advantage to do a cleaning on the outside. I went back and did a little more cleaning around the blue and the black spigots in the bottom, and to make sure I got everything cleaned out of there. And I went back, cleaned the tray. So see that was all covered in white calcium, and now that's cleaned up quite nicely. So that, and then I washed that with some clean water. So before we get ready, we'll just lightly wipe this with our clean cloth. Whoops. To clean those floats that are touching the water inside, but generally they're just up on top of the water. So I'm just gonna do a light cleaning because it's all plastic here, so you just don't want to knock anything off or break it. And this is the one that really touches the water. There we go. There's a dual. Okay, so that is done. So what we're going to do is, that's our clean cloth, we'll leave that there. I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to drain the cold water tank from the top here and get rid of any of the cleaning water that I used for the cold water tank. So I'll just drain that out of here. So drained all the water out of there. And then I'm going to come around again. And so we're going to drain the hot water tank. While that's draining, I'm going to come around and take some, because I got the paper towel with me. Sometimes we'll have that in the kitchens where we are. And I'm just going to do a little wiping here just to get any little sediment that may be laying there. So it's just another chance to get that nice little clean. Before we put more water back in. So that is cleaned out. We're going to do one more flush of water. Make sure we got all any dirty water out of here. So we'll fill that up, and we'll do another flush, but we can start putting our items back in. So this has all been cleaned. So that goes back in the center part here. And it's just finger tight of screwing it in. Sits in this little floats up. So that is there. I'm going to do a little wipe again with my clean cloth. You can't do this enough. Because now this sure the hot water. There we go. It had an airlock that time, so I had to open up the hot water valve to get it to flow. Yeah. So I'm going to do one more. I'm going to drain out and now we're going to go back and drain hot water tank. This is just a flush. Just try to get rid of any last remnants of stuff. There we go. That's the end of the flush of the hot water tank. So I'm going to slide this back in. That slides back, and then that slides forward. That's a locking arm. Now it's there. I'm going to get rid of this water. And now I'm going to finish draining the cold water tank. And then just, I'm going to take my clean cloth again, just run it around the cold water tank before I do my final drain, just to make sure there's no remnants of that vinegar water laying on the sides of the okay. Now we can do the final drain. Do the visual inspection to see if there's anything that needs to be cleaned out. It looks good. So that we have completed it. So we've got 2 flushes through, and so what we're now ready to do is we'll put the top back on. So the important thing is this snaps on. It sounds like you're breaking it, but some has a really big snap. That was a little older one, so it's and then you're bringing it through. So your locking ring sets in one little spot, and you just put pressure on it all the way around, turn it an 1/8 of a turn. Oh, didn't go all the way. There it is. It's now locked in place. And you just turn on your water, and we'll let that fill. And then once that fills up, shuts off here. We'll do some testing. We'll plug it back in. We'll test the hot water, and we'll test the cold water to make sure you've got a great taste and there's no smell of vinegar. If you happen to say, oh, I can still smell some vinegar, then flush that through again. What's in the tanks, just do a 1/3 full drain and then refill it again, and that should work. And that's it for doing a hot and cold cleaning of a hot water tank.